podcast of SAMA. SAMA is short for Spooky2 Ask Me Anything. It is an interview-style program that features one guest expert every week answering any of your questions in the area of their expertise. Today's expert couldn't make it, so I'm here to fill in. This program will broadcast live and will provide audiences a new experience of interacting with the experts directly and receiving valuable advice and answers to their questions and concerns on Spooky2 Rife and general health matters. We will begin by focusing on the Spooky2 Rife system. Then we will expand to broader Rife and health topics to provide as much information as you need to provide to live a happy and healthy life. Each episode will last around 60 minutes. Our guest SAMA expert will talk about their chosen subject for the first 30 to 40 minutes. And you'll be able to submit questions during which, after which they can answer these questions as part of the QA portion of the show. Each episode will be recorded and be available for viewing on the Spooky2 Videos website. We will have an audio podcast available as well. If you have any questions or suggestions on the program, please feel free to contact us via email at sama@spooky2rife.com. If you have got knowledge of a certain subject and wish to share this knowledge with other people, please contact us. We'd love to have you on this show. Don't worry about the technical side of things. We'll take care of everything. Well, today's show, the very first one, I'm going to be talking about the anatomy of Spooky2, the way that the components are joined together, how they're controlled, and their purposes. Okay, the first thing, the anatomy of Spooky2. Spooky2 is composed of many components, all connected together and functioning. The thing that controls the components is the software. The Spooky2 software is quite a powerful package. It controls the generator so that the generator can provide the signals to the amplifier, which is our Spooky2, and our various accessories. It also controls our biofeedback system, which is our Spooky Pulse. The generator can have what we call a Spooky Boost connected to it. The Spooky Boost increases the power that the generator puts out. The Spooky Boost can have many accessories connected onto it. It can have a coil connected. You can connect our Spooky Central even to the Spooky Boost. The Spooky Boost can make colloidal silver and provide safe contact mode treatment sessions. There's also our cold laser accessory, which we'll be talking about later. That can also connect directly either to the generator or through Spooky Boost. Okay. The brain of Spooky is the software. The heart of Spooky is the generator. The generator converts the signals from the brain, if you like, into frequencies that the accessories use to treat. The generator can interface directly with our Spooky Central. The Spooky Central drives our plasma device, our plasma tubes. The Spooky Pulse is used for determining the ideal frequencies to apply so you can be healed. I'm going to cover now the different transmission modes that Spooky2 has. The first one is the remote treatments. This is one of the very first ways that Spooky2 used to apply healing frequencies. Spooky Remote works through scalar transmission through quantum entanglement. What you apply to a sample DNA gets reflected in your own DNA, and you can be anywhere in the world and the frequencies will still reach you. So that's a very convenient means of treatment. Another way that Spooky2 can apply frequencies is through the coil, the pulsed EMF. This coil can plug directly into your generator, and you get these healing frequencies that way. We have cold laser, which also connects onto the generator, and that directly, the photons from the laser get absorbed by your cells, and this extra energy is used for healing. It's fantastic for general healing and for detoxing. We've got the powerful laser, which is supplying particles which go firing out pass out from the tube, and these particles at a determined frequency that also heal you from conditions. Okay, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. I think I've got a lot ahead of myself here. This is our first run. I'm very nervous, but I'm sure you can tolerate that. Thank you. I think I've covered all the frequency methods that Spooky2 uses. There's other systems that people use as well, like even the coil. People can imprint frequencies into a solution, and that's been effective for many people. So Spooky2 is very much a system that's continually growing. But I want to also cover the advantages of several of the systems. I've already covered the advantages, or some of the advantages of the Spooky Remote. The biggest advantage really is convenience. It's not certainly the fastest way of applying frequencies, but because you don't have to be sitting down and touching anything, holding hand cylinders or anything like this, you can treat yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's not any inconvenience to you. You can do whatever you like, and you do progressively get better. Other treatment, other ways of applying frequencies are contact mode. Now the contact mode, we've recently expanded our accessory range. In the past we just had the hand cylinders where you hold onto these metal cylinders and the frequencies go directly into your body. That was very good because it's quick, it's certainly effective. It's got years of proven evidence that it does work very well. But we've come up with other accessories to make things more convenient. We've come up with non-metallic hand cylinders. We've got conductive gloves, socks, and sleeves that fit over your arms and your legs. And so it's more comfortable to sit down during these treatment sessions and apply these frequencies by contact. The other method that we use for applying frequencies is cold laser. Now cold laser can be pulsed to apply frequencies according to the programs that are in the database within the Spooky2 software. But you can also use it with slow pulses, in which case it's the wavelengths of the laser itself which is providing the healing. The wavelength that our cold laser uses is between 640 and 660 nanometers. And that's the range, the healing range, which is ideal for tissue. Quite often when your tissue gets diseased, the energy level gets reduced, and the cold laser applies photons directly into the cell, which gives it the energy to self-heal. The disadvantage of laser, of course, is that it can't travel straight through your body like contact mode can. And so it's really good for superficial wounds or for detoxing of your blood, perhaps. You can place these cold laser transmitting unit directly over a blood vessel, and so your blood will get exposed to the healing laser light. The pulsed EMF coil of Spooky, that can connect directly either to your generator or to our Spooky Central unit. This coil provides magnetic waves that induce vibration in the cells which are being targeted. They can be high frequencies, in which case it's really doing its target as a small cell, or it can be slow entrainment frequencies. The advantages of Spooky Coil is that it's comfortable to use, it can be placed anywhere, and treatment times are generally not very long. Disadvantages are you've got to be close to the generator because the coil has got to be connected by a wire. The plasma unit is a very interesting way of applying frequencies. Yes, you do have to be close to the tube for it to be effective, but it's a very powerful way of applying frequencies. The very first machines that Royal Rife made were plasma machines, and he got startling results. And we are following in his footsteps and trying to replicate his results. And we found our Spooky Central to be quite remarkable in what it can achieve. So plasma, of all the methods of applying frequencies, is the most powerful. The treatment times are generally short. We generally recommend around 30 minutes as a baseline, but you can even use it overnight. You can have the plasma tube next to you as you sleep, but please remember to keep the tube well ventilated, because it will get hot. Because it's such a powerful device, it gives off heat, and that must be not allowed to build up. Okay, I'm trying to think what the next one was. Okay, I've covered the contact, coil, tube. There's ultrasonic as well. We have an ultrasonic transmitter that connects into our Spooky Central. The signal from the ultrasonic is mathematically related to the main frequency that's running through our Spooky Central. And so the idea is to run it in conjunction with the plasma so that the two work hand in hand. Actually, our Spooky Central has got facility for coil and contact as well, but they work differently to how I've previously discussed. The frequency is a fixed frequency, and the signal has been designed to be a very sharp signal. So in a way, it increases the effectiveness of the main method of application, which is the plasma. Okay. Now I'm going to go through a few questions which people have given us. The first question, or the first series of questions, is regarding Spooky Remote. The first question is, how does Spooky Remote actually work? It all sounds unbelievable. Well, the answer is yes. It does sound unbelievable. Spooky Remote uses the principles of quantum entanglement. When you clip your fingernail, that fragment of fingernail that you've clipped off remains attached to your fingernail that you cut it from, but not physically attached. The particles are attached. They've still got a relationship between the two. It's quantum entanglement, and it's association through distance. So you can actually apply frequencies to your fingernail, and the recipient, which shares that DNA, which is yourself, will also receive these frequencies. And so this is how the Spooky Remote actually works. You apply frequencies to the sample, and the frequencies get mirrored in your own body. And yes, it still sounds unbelievable. The second question, if I want to try try a remote treatment. What should I do? Well, I guess the question is asking really the mechanics. How do you set up a remote treatment? Well, you cut off a fragment of your DNA. We recommend fingernails because that DNA is long-lasting, but you can use saliva on a piece of paper. You just let the saliva dry. The DNA will be on the paper. Or you can use a sample of blood. In some instances, whether people have used a sample of the diseased part, like squeezed out a bit of the infection and used that within Spooky Remote, and that has actually proven to be very effective. And they've put that between the Spooky2. I'm getting ahead of myself, but generally what you do is you put the DNA sample between the two printed circuit boards on the Spooky Remote. You put the DNA in a piece of tape, fold the tape over, and you slide the tape into the Spooky Remote. We recommend that you put the name and the date on the DNA sample, because quite often what happens is that people ask you to treat themselves, and you don't want to mix the DNA up. It just keeps things well organized. And then you set up Spooky to apply frequencies to the Spooky Remote and walk away. Over the course of time, you'll feel that there's an improvement in your condition, and then, not soon after that, not long after that, I mean, you'll find that the condition has been fully resolved. It's quite often the case. Okay, so that's one page. Does Spooky Remote work at the same efficiency no matter how far away the person is to the generator? Well, yes, it does. Some people have said that it seems to work better when they are close to the Spooky Remote. Some clinics have the Spooky Remote next to the person on a chair, so the person's getting treatment whilst they're in the clinic. The reports back have been that it seems to be more effective. It may be. We're still investigating this, but we do know that it is effective over every distance that we've tried. We've gone from country to country. We haven't tried planet to planet. We're still waiting for someone to test that out for us. Maybe next week one of our listeners can report back. Can you use hair in Spooky Remote? And then normally what sources of DNA do you use? Well, I've already suggested using nails because nails are a very stable form of DNA. Can you use hair? No. Hair itself does not contain DNA, but there is a portion of the hair that does, and that's the root of the hair. If you're follicle challenged like myself, it's best to use nails because every hair is precious. Can urine be used as DNA sample? Again, generally no. Urine doesn't contain DNA normally. Sometimes it does. It gets sloughed off your intestines and your bowels, but generally DNA is not within urine. And if it is, generally the quality is not very high. The better quality sample of DNA you have, the better your results will be. Does the amount of nail clippings that you put in the remote matter? The more the better, or is one nail enough? No, you need a bucket full of nails. Well, actually it don't. You can use a microscopic size sample of DNA in your sample. Size truly doesn't matter. DNA is very, very small, and you only theoretically need one fragment or one complete fragment of DNA to perform the treatment. And so when you think about forensics, crime lab people, when they do their testing, they're getting DNA from fingerprints, which is from the very fine surface layer of your skin and perspiration, and they can get viable DNA from that. So no, you don't need a bucket full of fingernails or DNA samples of any form. Just any portion size would do. When using nail clippings, can the nail have fingernail polish on it? Can you use a piece that has the polish cleaned off? And does it reduce the performance of the treatment? No, it doesn't matter. The nail polish itself does not contain DNA, and it's only the DNA that we're using. And so nail polish is fine. Is it possible to use footnail? Yes. Well, footnails has got the same keratin, which is the same constituents of fingernails. People generally use fingernails because the fingernails are thinner, they're easier to work with, and they can be more readily cut into smaller portions. And so it's really the convenience side, but no, you can use toenails if you like. Does DNA in nail degrade over time? Should I use fresh nails? There's two lines of thoughts on this. Many people use fingernails and they don't change the fingernail sample over a period of many years, and they get good results. Other people have been recommending that the fingernails be changed once a month, stating that the performance will degrade over time. So there's two lines of thought. You can choose either one. When you consider that DNA from millennia ago is still viable today, I think on that time scale, years is not really that long. But also considering that because it's so easy to clip your fingernails, it's a routine that most people do often. You can easily, every time you cut your nails, just refresh the fingernail samples that you have. And so in that case, if you are concerned about the freshness of your DNA, you can just do this every time you cut your nails, but it's certainly not necessary. Is resonant treatment suitable for all people? Well, I think applying to Spooky Remote, yes, it is suitable for all people. Of all the ways of applying frequencies, Spooky Remote is the safest. It's the most gentlest. It's possibly the slowest. But when speed is not an issue, when you've got a few weeks with which to resolve your health issues, Spooky Remote is the best way of applying the frequencies. And it is the safest because there's no electrons passing through your body. Electrons can cause damage if you pass the signal through your heart or if you use it above your head. There are dangers there. But with Spooky Remote, no, it's very, very safe. So it's safe for children. It is the most safe method that we have. Another question, can fingernails from different people be mixed together? Well, the quick answer is yes. The longer answer is that it's not recommended because there's really two reasons. The first one is when you have fingernail samples, what you generally find is that you'll be treating a group of people for one condition, and then one member of the group will say, oh, I need to be treated for this as well. And being the good-hearted, spooky user that you are, you decide to treat this other person. But if their DNA is mixed with the group, it's not possible to treat him separately. But more importantly, some researchers feel that it's better to keep the DNA samples separate, and even separate from by a small distance, because there can be some communication between the DNA samples, which is certainly undesirable. And so our recommendation is to envelope each person's DNA in a separate portion of tape write the person's name and the date on that tape, and keep that tape, if you can, separate from other people. We don't see any harm in having the DNA that's been put in tape inserted with other people's DNA within the same Spooky remote, but certainly not touching the other people's DNA. We do recommend to keep it isolated in that way. Do I have to believe in the remote resonant treatment to have it working? Well, no. We haven't found any way to convince plants and animals that remote treatments work, but it does work for those too. And people that are skeptical about remote treatments, quite often their spouses have used their DNA, sometimes covertly, but we don't recommend that. And that people have become better. And so no, you certainly don't have to be believed. Spooky remote is not a belief system. We don't believe that the placebo effect works with plants and animals. And so no, it should work for people that do not believe. And can animals be treated with remote treatments? Well, it's actually the preferred method of treatment for treating animals because animals don't like sitting in chairs holding contacts for very long periods of time. It can be done if your pet is sleeping. You can perhaps slide in some contact plates beneath them. But remote treatments are by far the easiest way to apply frequencies to animals and plants. Yeah, it's because of the convenience of Spooky remote. It makes it convenient for more difficult patients. Are there any adverse effects on the remote resonant treatments? Well, no, there's not. At the beginning, some people feel a little bit unwell, but that is generally because of toxins being released into their body as a result of these healing frequencies being applied. Fortunately, Spooky2 has plenty of detox programs and a few excellent detox presets which have got programs contained and all the settings appropriately set to remove these toxins that are released as you're going down this healing path. So generally at the beginning people feel a little bit groggy, a little bit tired, sometimes they may have a headache, but over time these will subside. And so that's really the only bad side effect you will have when you start using Spooky remote. Okay. Okay. Well, those were the pre-scripted questions. I've just had one in now. This question reads, when using multiple DNA stacked, one nail on paper strip with tape holding it down, does one receive the most benefit? I understand. They're asking when DNA is placed one on top of the other. I've said just before how many samples of DNA can be placed within a Spooky remote. Well, if you have many samples of DNA within the same Spooky remote, they've got to be placed on top of each other. And this person is asking, will the top person get the most benefit? Well, scalar fields, which is how Spooky remote works, is transparent to almost everything. And so it's passing through all the DNA. All the DNA samples should be getting the same fields passing through them. And so the answer to that is no. The top one is not getting the best, the most frequency. If you think it is, then put your one on top, but it's not the case. They will be receiving the same amount of frequencies, the same strength of frequencies. Yes? This one was from Susie, from Susie Smith. Yes, she's a lovely lady. Thank you, Susie, for that question. All right, so we'll now go into our contact mode pre-scripted questions. Okay, what is the recommended way of holding the hand cylinders? The hand cylinders are two cylinders that you hold with either hand. Now, that's got the disadvantage of the fact that the signal's only going from one contact, one electrode, which is one hand cylinder, to the other. So it's only treating the top part of your body. It's not treating where most of your organs are or your legs. And so what we've come up with is more contact mode accessories that allow more full body treatment. And so if you use one hand cylinder on your right hand and you use a TENS pad, which is an adhesive pad that conducts electricity, on your left ankle area, your whole body will be treated. Now the reason we recommend using your right hand for the hand cylinder, if you use your left hand, the signal will pass through your heart, and we don't want to interfere with the electrical signals that your heart uses to function correctly. And so this, using your right hand, left foot treatment path, is a safe way of treating your whole body. It's a very long path that the electricity must take, and it passes through most of your major organs. And so that's our recommended way of holding the hand cylinders. The answer is one cylinder, one TENS pad, or one conductive sock or sleeve over your calf muscle or your ankle area. Another question. Can two hands touch each other during contact session whilst using hand cylinders? Well, I assume they're asking my own two hands, because you can touch someone else's hands while you're having a treatment, preferably your partner's hand. No. If the way that electricity works, it will always find the easiest path. It's like when you're going to work, you don't find the longest way to go to work. The way to drive is the shortest way and the fastest way, and electricity is the same. And so if you're touching your hands, the electricity will flow from one hand to the other, and it won't bother going the long way. It will go the short way, and so you won't be getting effective treatment. Is it okay if I wear metal rings on my fingers during contact session using hand cylinders? Metal, if you're wearing rings and they're easy to slip off, then you can do so. But generally we found that it doesn't affect treatment at all. The contact area of your hand on the hand cylinders is very large. If your ring is touching the hand cylinder, it's a very small area. Electricity, being laser, always goes the easy way, so it passes through the large area through the skin on your palm, through your arm and down to your other hand cylinder. And so no, there's no harm in keeping your metal rings off your on your fingers while you're doing your treatment. Is it recommended to use wet paper toweling with Spooky2 metal hand cylinders? Well, yes, it is. Two reasons. First of all, it's always good, it's prudent to keep metal away from your skin in any way, just as a matter of precaution. We've always used surgical grade stainless steel, which is one of the least reactive metals to use, but it's great to have some form of or something between the metal and your skin, just to prevent any sort of problem. The second reason, which is probably more important in our case, is water is a good conductor of electricity, and you want as good a contact as possible. And so if you place a wet tissue or wet cloth between the hand cylinder and your hand, it provides a larger surface area. The electricity will flow easier through your body and increase the effectiveness of the treatment. So yes, it is recommended. It also helps prevent any sort of hot spots between the hand cylinders. If your skin is dry, sometimes the contact is not very good and your skin can have a reaction as the electricity passes through it. If your skin is wet, there's no way that a hotspot can form and your skin will be better protected against that. And so it's really 3 reasons why we recommend that we use some sort of wet cloth or wet tissue between the hand cylinder and your skin. Of course, if you use a wet tissue, you can discard the tissue later, so it may be more hygienic for clinical use. How many times can I reuse TENS pads? Can TENS pads be reused? TENS pads are little adhesive pads that stick to your body and wires plug into them, or a wire plugs into each pad, and the electricity flows through these pads. The adhesive side of the pad can dry out over time, and so generally we recommend around 20 times usage for these pads. We recommend also to use them only for yourself. Don't use them with someone else because we don't want to have any sort of cross-contamination. But we find that after 20 sessions, the adhesive side of the pad loses its stickiness. And when you have a poor contact, this is when you'll get the hot spots, which I was referring to before. And you have the possible chance of your skin burning under the pad. And so always use a pad that has got a very good sticky side and hasn't dried out. Also, as you use TENS pads or any other contact means, if you feel uncomfortable, stop your treatment and seek some form of advice. We found that some people have been using treatment methods with Spooky software set to 100% offset. That's fine for short durations, but for any longer durations, it can cause acid build-up underneath the TENS pad or underneath the hand cylinders, and that can damage your skin. So if you feel uncomfortable, it could be the early signs of your skin being irritated. So please stop and make some form of adjustments so that you don't feel this irritation. Is the wrist a good location to use TENS pads, or should it be more specific to the problem area? Well, the inside of the wrist is actually not a very good place to apply the TENS pads because it's right over a blood vessel and we don't recommend this. Yes, you should either place TENS pads over the problem area or across the problem area, because as you can recall, I mentioned earlier, the electricity will flow between the electrodes. The TENS pads are electrodes, and so if you have a problem area and you place TENS pads either side of the area, the electricity must pass through the problem area. Okay. Can I use the TENS pads and Spooky tubes anywhere on the body? Well, the TENS pads are good for where there's not too much hair on your body. They've got to make contact with your skin, and so don't apply them where you've got plenty of hair. We don't recommend any form of contact treatment above the neckline because your skin's very sensitive there, and there's a very important organ in many people right about here. And so that's another reason why you shouldn't apply it above your neckline. I don't recommend you to apply them over blood vessels or parts of your body where there's a joint, like directly on your ankle bone, where there's not much soft tissue under your skin. the electricity will have problems flowing and you may cause problems. And so we recommend the TENS pads to be placed where there's muscle tissue underneath, where there's not much hair, and where the contact's going to be good. Okay, how many times a day can I use Spooky2 in contact mode? Well, in most situations, we recommend twice a day. There may be some conditions that require more, and certainly some of the more serious conditions do require more treatment times. There's many instances where we'd use contact mode overnight, but you must be very, very careful before doing this. Do a few test runs to make sure that your body can handle such an intensive treatment and that the equipment that you're using is suitable for overnight sessions. So maybe if you do plan to do an overnight session, try it for an hour initially. If you're using a TENS pad, treat yourself for an hour, then remove the pad, inspect your skin under the pad very carefully, make sure there's no damage, and exercise caution if you do ever go to the overnight treatments. Okay, I don't feel any current using TENS pads, and this person's asking why. Well, if you're not feeling any current, that's actually fantastic, because many people report the opposite. They find that contact treatment is quite painful, and it can be painful for several reasons. The first one I touched on earlier is offsets. If you use an offset in your settings, you may get or you almost certainly will get an acid buildup underneath your pads or underneath your hand cylinders. And this is a very strong irritant. So most of our presets that we supply with Spooky2 have got contact mode settings for a 0% offset. The other reason why some people find that contact treatment modes are painful is the frequencies that they're using. Below 10 kilohertz, our nerves are very sensitive and they can feel the electricity passing through them, and it's experienced as pain. And so that's the last thing you want if you're not feeling very well. In this instance, what people do is they apply what they call a harmonic, which is a higher frequency, which does the same job but makes it less painful. Thank you. I've got a very great support crew here. And so if you're using the higher frequencies, then the frequencies will not be felt. You won't feel them at all. And so you can do longer treatments comfortably that way. There was another thing I was going to touch on, but I can't recall. I'll probably come back to it later. Okay, is it possible to use 2 generators at the same time in treatment modes? It's a good idea in theory, because it means you can halve your treatment time. If you've got a set number of programs to run, you can run half the programs on one generator and the other half on the other generator. But in practice, it doesn't work that way. What happens is the signals from one generator will bypass your body and short to the other generator. And so the electron flow through your body will not be where you want it to flow. And so, no, don't use 2 generators simultaneously. For the technical people listening, it is possible to do this, but you've got to ensure that the generators are electrically isolated from each other. And because the generators are running from the same computer, the USB ports connect them electrically. And so in our generators, it's not possible to use more than one at the same time. Okay. Is spectrum sweep recommended for contact mode? Spectrum is a clever way where Spooky can provide many frequencies at the same time. Commonly people apply a spectrum value of 96, which is 96 different frequencies simultaneously. And so that sounds really amazing, but it has got a downside. If you're applying frequencies to your body and you're applying 96 of them, the output power from the generator is divided into 96. And so we have found that, well, it's possible, but it's not recommended because the effectiveness is radically reduced. Even applying a spectrum value of 2 is not recommended because again, the power for each frequency is halved. And so that's really why we don't recommend using spectrum. Wonderful. Okay. Okay, right. Well, I've had 2 questions regarding contact mode given now. The first question is by the man himself, David Berg. He's part of the core team of Spooky2. Without him, we wouldn't have Spooky now. And the question reads, is it safe to wash the textile electrodes in the Spooky2 kit? And how is this done? We, at the beginning, we used to have only our steel handheld electrodes, David. But very recently, we've introduced non-metallic accessories for contact mode as well. And we've produced our conductive rubber handheld cylinders. In our instructions that we supply with cylinders, we recommend to keep them dry. But the truth of the matter is it doesn't really matter. There's nothing to corrode in the hand cylinders, and it's a good idea to really clean things regularly that you're in regular contact with. And so it is safe and it is okay to wash the hand cylinders of that type, but please make sure that you dry them before you use them next. It's okay to use a wet cloth around the hand cylinders, but I'm really talking about inside the hand cylinders themselves, because you don't want to have a pool of water inside that breeds bacteria. So for hygiene reasons, it's best to dry them between sessions if you do clean them. But it's certainly safe and it's certainly okay. Thank you for the question. David, you've the other questions from you as well. Would a sock and glove be safer than TENS pads for overnight contact treatments? I guess it would be. David. But for this reason, contact treatments rely on a contact electrode being placed against your skin. The larger the contact is, the safer it is, because it means each portion of the skin is carrying a reduced current. Now the socks and the gloves cover your complete foot and your complete hand. So is applying the frequencies through the back of your hand, the front of your hand, and also surrounding your foot. We do recommend that you put any contact type accessory apart from the TENS pads over damp skin. And so for the duration of a complete night, there is a possibility that your skin dries out, in which case it wouldn't be good. People have put conductive creams over their hands prior to putting the gloves on, and these creams do last overnight quite well. They've reported great success. But the same with any method of applying contact mode, David. We do recommend that you give it a try for progressively longer periods of time. Always err on the side of caution. The last thing you want is any sort of skin damage. But as a direct answer to your question, I would say yes, gloves and socks would be safer than TENS pads for overnight treatments. There's also the possibility, David, of movement during the night. Everyone rolls around in their sleep, and TENS pads can become dislodged, whereas gloves and socks are more stable, and so it's possibly a better method in that way. Are there any other questions in contact mode? We've got a lot of. I better keep tracking because there's plenty of other material to cover. Okay, plasma mode. How far does the plasma in Spooky2 Central work? Well, there's two main different types of fields that our Spooky Central plasma unit produces. There's the near field and the far field. The near field is it emanates around 1 foot from the tube, and so for the best the most efficient treatments, we recommend that people get very, very close to the tube or even hug the tube. The tube normally would not get very hot if it's allowed to have air ventilate around it freely. That's one type of field that the tube produces. The far field extends much further, and the far field can be used for treating other types of conditions. If your house has got mold, for example, it can be used to eradicate the mold. And it can be used for treating several people simultaneously if they are close to the tube. But again, as I said before, near field is the most effective and it provides the fastest results. What is the frequency range of the plasma? Spooky Central works from 100 kilohertz to 3.5 megahertz. That's the operating range of the tube. Our Phenatron tube, which is our round tube, can have a lower frequency applied to it. It will still work. But that's the recommended range for our Spooky Central unit. There's no harm in running it at a very low frequency. It's self-protected. We don't recommend going into the low kilohertz range, but as an example, I've run Spooky Central with our plasma unit, with our Phenatron plasma at 60 kilohertz successfully. I was careful with the way that I lay the high voltage cables that go to the tube, but it ran that frequency fine. So that's the range, that's possibly the lowest I'd want to run the plasma unit at. Is the plasma tube powerful enough to treat the whole body, or can it just treat one body part? Well, we've got our straight plasma tube. That's probably best suited for whole body treatments because of its shape. It's long and it can be held against the body. It's got a larger treatment area. But when you spread a set power over a larger area, you get less power at any particular point. We developed our Spooky Phenatron tube, which has a more focused beam. And so if you hold a Phenatron tube against your body, your whole body will still get full body treatment. The part where the tube is actually touching your body part will get a greater treatment, but your whole body will still get frequencies applied. Pardon me. Is the plasma tube UV shielded? This is a very important question. Some experimenters have made their own machines, and their machines produce copious ultraviolet light. Generally, when you add mercury to the gas, the tube will emit a huge amount of ultraviolet light. Mercury is a poison, but it's not that which, it's interaction with the gas ions that produces the ultraviolet. They add mercury because it makes the tube bright and also makes it easier to run. It looks more impressive because it's brighter and it's louder. But the problem is the ultraviolet. Also, the glass type that is used cannot quite often be very transparent to ultraviolet light. Now, the Spooky tubes use no mercury whatsoever in, within the tube at all. And so, no, there will be a tiny amount of ultraviolet being emitted by the tube, but it is very low level and it is safe. Is it possible to attach other plasma tubes which have been bought from other companies? Well, it is. There's nothing really special about our tubes apart from the fact that they're made by a loving company that cares for our users. but please use a tube that's designed for low voltage use. It must have internal electrodes. And use a quality tube. We don't recommend using mercury because it makes the tube emit lots of ultraviolet light, and there is the danger of mercury always being released by the tube. Okay, does a plasma tube have the ability to produce many frequencies at the same time? Well, actually, yes it is, and you don't actually have to apply different frequencies to the tube simultaneously for that effect. A plasma tube will always introduce its own harmonics to the frequencies, and this is part of the magic behind plasma. Plasma can have a single frequency applied and many different frequencies will be simultaneously emitted by the tube. There's many tricks that can be used as well to make the tube produce simultaneous frequencies. We can use a carrier if you insist and modulate that, and then many sideband frequencies are provided. There's disadvantages in that and other methods, and these have been covered before with the contact mode, where the power of the tube is being spread over many frequencies. It's better to apply and focus these frequencies in the area where you need them rather than areas which are not needed. So yes, it is possible to apply many different frequencies, but it's not recommended to do so if you can possibly help it. Can we use Spooky Central for healing and detox frequencies? Yes, you can use the Spooky Central for healing and detox. There's a preset specifically for that. This preset makes the tube run in beat frequency mode, and so if you use beat frequencies, effectively you can run very, very low frequencies which perform the healing and detox functions. What is the maximum time I can use the plasma continuously? Well, there's no maximum time really. Different people have got different sensitivities. Some people are very sensitive to the signals that the plasma puts out. And so in that case, you'd want to use Spooky Central for short durations. But we find that most people are okay with overnight treatments. And so they place the tube next to them on top of the bed sheets or even below the bed during the night, and then they can perform their treatments. If you do use Spooky Central overnight, just make sure that the tube has always got ventilation around it. To help yourself sleeping, you can buy a sleeping mask, which is what they sell at travel agencies and chemist shops and places like this, drugstores if you're American, and you place this mask over your eyes and it stops the flashing light. But Many people do this. Some programs are long programs, and it is necessary to run them overnight because it's not fun to sit in the same place for 8 hours at a stretch. And there's been great reports back from these people. What is the difference between the two spooky tubes? Well, the straight tube that we saw, that has got a predominantly argon gas inside with a little bit of helium for good measure. The tube is good for whole body use. There's no focusing of the beam. Our spooky phanatron contains pure helium and no other gas. It's got a special glass type which is strong and allows the signals to pass through. It's got two convenient holders, so you can easily hold it against your body or place it on a flat surface for longer treatments if you wish. Those are the main differences. There's many other differences. The phanatron tube is my personal favourite because it does a partial focusing of the field, and so the treatment is quicker. Okay, it's got some answers here in the pre-scripted questions. I didn't mention that the frequency range of the phanatron tube is a little bit higher, a little bit broader, I should say. Okay, that's that. Okay. 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 Okay, well, at the beginning of this talk, I was worried about whether I'd have enough information, enough material to sort of pack out, but it seems like I've overrun. We've got cold laser and other things, but there's been a few questions rolling. Right, and then in our next seminar session, we may cover the different modes in more detail, the different ways that frequencies can be applied. Now we've got a question from Chris Williams. Is the disintegrator factor in the MW database being researched and reintroduced? Chris, this is a wonderful question. It's something that we've been working on just recently, which is why I guess it's causing a bit of confusion. The disintegrator factor was a factor that we had within Spooky that converted the frequency to allow for the fact that frequencies travel slower through human tissue or through any tissue. We came to realize that disintegrator factor is the wrong term to use because it's not disintegrating. It doesn't increase the disintegrative abilities of a frequency. All it does is convert a frequency from one frequency to another. When you apply at 100 hertz, 100 kilohertz, for example, to your body, the wavelength will be a certain length. This length will be much less actually within your body because it travels slower. So we now have renamed it to tissue factor, which more closely matches the function of that factor. And you're really asking, is it being recommended? No. And the reason is this. The tissue factor is different for different people. It's different for the same person and through different parts of your body. The tissue factor is different through muscle than through bone, through brain, through your pancreas. Different parts of your body will have different tissue factors. And so this is why we regard it as experimental. But no, we don't use that now for our MW, which is our molecular weight database, or our BP, which is our base pair database. We recommend you use the raw values, which use the speed of light through a vacuum as part of the calculation. If you do get a chance, look up permittivity of tissue types, and you'll see why we don't recommend to use our tissue factor in your programs. Okay, Andre Calendar, sorry. You're asking me, what are the benefits in today's release of BP and Newport options? Adoptions. Newport is a researcher who's been around for a great number of years, highly respected. He's developed many programs for treating many conditions, and in true spooky nature, we robbed we're using his research and his findings in our programs, in our presets and programs that we've got within Spooky2. And the latest release has got, David Burke has adapted his programs to be used in Spooky2, so all of our users can benefit from the wisdom of this wise man. What are the benefits? Well, everyone can benefit because his frequencies work. They've been proven to work. The base pair frequencies have got the benefit in that they're precise, they're exact. You don't need to apply wobble to these. You can apply these frequencies directly, and they will work, and they can be mathematically proven. You've asked another question. When doing a biofeedback scan, will these new entries from BP and Newport be passed into body via remote mode? Yes, when you do a biofeedback scan, there's a facility of doing refinement scan, and you can use entries from any of the Spooky2 databases, whether it's a Newport frequency set or whether it's a set from the base pairs, and Spooky2 will report back with the exact frequencies to apply. Having said that, we don't recommend using a refinement scan for the base pair frequencies because those frequencies are already exact. They're not determined through experimentation. They've been calculated. And so there's no benefit from doing a refinement scan using base pair. But certainly any of the other frequency sets you can do refinement scans. And so yes, you can do biofeedback using any of these frequency sets. Okay. A question from Georgina Hall. I hope I've got your name right. I must, okay. Some healers say that in order for, your written font size is very small. In order for, or maybe if you're right. Okay, so when using Spooky Remote, sure, I understand. Georgina was asking, is it necessary to apply coloured light to the subject whilst doing remote treatment? They're saying that the treatments have got greater benefit. And have we experimented in doing this ourselves? No, we haven't tried experimenting with that. There's many different ways that Spooky2 treatments can be applied. You've got, you know, Georgina, we are not all-knowing. Sitting here now, I can't explain fully how remote treatments work. I can't explain the mechanics. Mankind can't explain the mechanics fully. And maybe in the distant future we can. And so, yes, there may be benefit in shining a light of a certain colour, you know, simultaneously on the DNA sample and the person, or just on the recipient person. We don't know, and we haven't tried it. Perhaps what we do rely a lot on is reports from our users. We've got thousands of users, which effectively means we've got thousands of researchers. And so as we get reports back, we combine these in the methods in our manuals of treatment. So Spooky2 is always continuously improving through the feedback of our users. Okay, another question. Which program or programs can be best used to support kidney function? This is a question from Jarrett Egbert. Jarrett. Hi, Jarrett. Thanks for your question. Yes, certainly. Kidneys have got a detoxing function, and there's many programs within Spooky Central which assist the kidneys in detoxing the body. One of these is the Terrain Protocol, which has been put together, which combines many different programs. This protocol was written as a preset, which you run within Spooky, and it helps the kidneys perform the function of filtering out the poisons within your body. It's a very important thing to run detox whilst running killing programs because, of course, you know, pathogens, when they die, they spill out the poison contents into your blood, into your lymphatics. You've got to remove these poisons, and you want to help your body do so. And so we do recommend running detox programs. And so these are the ones that we recommend for assisting your kidneys in performing their function. Okay, Diana Smith, you asked the question, will I be able to Oh, wonderful question. Okay, Diana, you're asking, do you need more than one generator to treat yourself, to detox yourself? Yes, you can. We know that many people just can't afford a kit, and so they buy the minimum, which is a generator, a speaker remote. That's perfectly fine. We find that some conditions do require more than one generator. Certainly the more serious ones, the bad conditions do need to have multiple generators. But if your condition is a minor one, certainly you can do that. Just use one generator. You can alternate the programs between killing and detoxing, so the program destroys the pathogen and then the detox removes it from your body. So yes, it is possible. But of course the disadvantage is it will take longer to do that. So yes, if your condition is an easy one to heal, we do recommend that things like headaches and sleep problems, a single generator is fine for that. But for the major ones, no, go for more generators if you can afford it. Okay, actually there's quite a few questions to go through. Maybe I'll answer them a little bit faster. What is the difference between Kroll? Oh. Oh. Okay, for the biofeedback, yeah, this question will take a little bit of time to answer. So this is from Chris Williams. Thanks for the question, Chris. You're asking me what is the difference between the program, the different shells that control biofeedback scan. Perhaps we can answer this at a different SAMA session in more detail. And briefly, Spooky biofeedback works in different ways. It can tell you which frequencies are most beneficial within a program. It can tell you which exact frequencies work within a program. And we've got videos in our spooky2videos.com which explain in more detail. And perhaps I suggest that you and others that want to know a more complete answer to this question, go to that site and have a look at the way that the different presets control the biofeedback scans. Okay. Lionel Leary. Hi, Lionel. Lionel, you asked the question, gosh, yes. Yeah. Okay, yes. You're asking, do you need to run 2 biofeedback scans, one for healing, one for killing, and run them at the same time simultaneously on 2 generators? No, you don't generally do that. The healing frequencies, we're moving slowly away from defining a program as a healing program. Frequencies shake, and so by virtue of their nature, most frequencies will kill something if it's tuned to that something, if it's tuned to the target. And so you certainly do a biofeedback scan for the program which is designed to kill whatever you want to kill and make yourself better. But the programs for detox, you don't generally need to run a biofeedback scan for those. Generally, the detox programs are designed to improve your kidney functions, to to help your body remove heavy metals which are latent and been long-standing within your body. And so you don't generally need to run biofeedback scans for those, but certainly for the first. Okay, thundering on. Okay, Arthur Stew, the writing. I'm sorry. Arthur St. James, sorry. It's the way that the writing has been presented to me. You're asking about carrier waves, how to set up a fixed carrier, presumably for Spooky Central. You're asking how is it done? You didn't find the information in any of the presets. We don't recommend using a fixed carrier. The presets that we write are the presets that we would use on ourselves and the ones we love. And so we know the dangers of a fixed carrier. It's not safe to, in our opinion, it's not safe to apply a fixed powerful frequency for an extended period of time. And that's precisely what a carrier wave does. And so this is why we don't provide a preset for that. I have touched on one of the videos I've produced before, how to set up Spooky for a fixed carrier, and the manual does give instructions on how to do this. Possibly in the time that we have left, I haven't got sufficient time, but it's easily possible. We recommend you read the user's guide, which is written by David Berg, and you'll get the information there on how to set up your Spooky Central with a fixed carrier. Arthur Stubb. Oh, I'm sorry, Arthur, you've written the same. Oh my goodness, Arthur, you've got an inquisitive mind. You're asking what's coming up. Well, we've got many exciting things coming up, but unfortunately I can't tell you what they are. But they're coming up. There's 2 big things that will change the landscape of rifing forever, in our opinion. And so they're very exciting and they're going to be very, very effective. but we cannot give the details, I'm sorry. Certainly. Okay, Lionel Levy, you've asked us, can we use gloves and socks together with two generators? No. The signals from the two generators will cancel each other out. Because the two generators are connected to the same computer via USB, they're electrically connected together. And so the signal from one generator will go directly to the other generator. It will bypass much of your body. Okay, are there any other questions?
Yes, this one from Judy, that's work, and she's asking how close can generators be without the jeopardizing the noise? And what's more and then very close.
Okay. Judy Maxworth, I'm sorry if I've got your name wrong. How close can your generators be? You've got your system set up with Spooky remotes. Your generators can be as close as you like, really. The way that I have my setup, I have one generator on top of the other, stacked carefully so they don't tip over, and I have them right next to each other. Inherently, there will be a small distance between each remote, and that's sufficient. What you do have to always ensure is that there's a bit of cooling space around the generator so there's no overheating. The easiest way to set up the generators is set them up horizontally and just have them, you can have them touching each other. There's no distance required between the generators. There's no need to have an air gap. And when you do that, the Spooky remotes themselves will be easy to be accessed, and there's a slight gap between each remote. But there's no set distance to have, but no necessary gap between the generators. You can have them as close as you like. Right. Echo's making the point that some users have felt that there does need to be a distance between the remote transmitters. There's two lines of thought. Some people have felt that a distance of 6 inches between the remote transmitters is required because the otherwise you'll get interference between the remotes. Until now, we've had them pretty much end on end, and we found that the results have been good. In early research, Johann Stegman used to have his remote transmitters pretty much touching each other, and he had quite amazing results. And so I guess it's still out for the verdict is still hasn't been made yet. We're still keeping our remotes close together, and we haven't had any bad results in doing so. Any other questions? Well, that's it. I'm not sure whether we've gone past time, but thank you so much. I'd like to thank all the audience in participating. This SAMA is a new feature. This is our very first one, which explains why I've been fidgeting a lot. And it's been unrehearsed, and so there's been a few glitches, but there's many experts out there who we want to have in our program so they can share their experience with our users. We plan to have it so that people can ask the questions during an initial talk, and the expert then gets shown these questions and they can answer the questions they wish to answer. So we don't want to have any pressure given to our experts, but we value information. Knowledge is power, power is strength. We want our users to learn from these experts. if they've got things to share, if you have got an area of knowledge that you think people can benefit from, we'd love to have you here. You can email us directly at sama@spooky2rife.com, and please let us know what you'd like to talk about. There's researchers whom I would love to have on this program, and I'll be approaching these researchers directly in due course and humbly asking them to come on board and talking about their area of expertise. The focus of SAMA is not spooky. I've already covered the accessories and the mode of transmission of spooky, but we'd love to cover many, many different other areas. We want to cover the Rife history. We'd like to go into high-powered microscopes and acupuncture, many, colour therapy. There's so many different ways that people can heal. And so we'd love to have you here, and we'd love to share your information with our users so everyone becomes more able to heal themselves and their loved ones. So thank you for bearing with me. Our next SAMA session will be next week. We will have an expert here and we'll be talking about some other detail. Please use this information for goodness. Learn to take control over your own health conditions. Be strong and share your knowledge with others. Thank you so much, and goodbye.